Taylen Kinney, a five-star player in the class of 2026, is committing this Sunday. Some experts think that Kansas could be the school. We're going to break that down ahead of the big weekend for the Jayhawks.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is a bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and I guess in this case, bonus episode, second listen every day. And thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, including our bonus episodes for you here. We've broken down the KU Cincinnati game ad nauseum throughout the week here. Talking a little KU basketball in this bonus episode of the show is Taylen Kinney, who is a five-star recruit in the class of 2026. He's going to be announcing this weekend. That announcement will come on Sunday afternoon. And, some experts are assuming that Kansas could be the school for Taylen Kinney. There were, a week or two ago, some different, people like On3, for instance, that gave crystal balls for Kansas. Seemingly some of the scuttlebutt. Now, that doesn't guarantee things. We've seen it before where it felt like, okay, a player, is trending to KU and then he picks another school. So you never know until they actually commit, but it does seem like Kansas has put them in a favorable decision. So he's going to making his announcement on Sunday, September 28th, and he is the number one point guard on 24/7 Sports. He is the 13th nationally rated player over on 24/7 Sports as a five-star recruit. Now, if you look at the 247 composite, he is the number 2 point guard, still top 20 player there. But he's between Kansas, Arkansas, Indiana, Oregon, Kentucky, Louisville. I mean, who's who, as you would imagine, for the number 1 point guard in the class. It does seem like, KU, maybe Arkansas, maybe Louisville kind of distanced themselves among the top, and KU was seen as somebody who was maybe on the outside looking in. Then they had their visit, and then some of the scuttlebutt kind of came in that the visit went so well that it put Kansas in at least a real shot to land this kid on Sunday. But he's a 6'1" point guard. He's known as a strong scoring point guard, has good pull-up game ability, drive and kick ability, and he's a physical player. He doesn't weigh the most in the world. He's 6'1", but he has 6'6" wingspan. He knows how to use his body and use it physically. So what would this mean for KU? What if they get him? What if they don't? And would this officially establish a pipeline for KU with Overtime Elite, which would be a pretty good place to have a pipeline with KU? We'll get to that in a second with Locked On Jayhawks. This bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Mazda. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it. Really, go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Again, check out our episodes previewing the KU Cincinnati game. So what happens if KU lands Taylen Kinney? What if they don't? Let's start with the good news. If they do land him, right? I think automatically you're looking to the roster in 2026, and the expectation is obviously for Darren Peterson to be a one and done with how good he's expected to be. Okay, so he would be gone. Melvin Council Jr., I think technically, this is again where I get weird with could you make all the JUCO years not count? Because then technically, could you argue Melvin Council should have another year? But I know he's listed as a senior, so I'm just going to assume he's gone, even though, again, if you made that argument in court, if neither of his JUCO years counted, then technically he could. But again, I don't expect that to be the case. So Council would be gone. Jaden Dawson's a senior. Trey White's a senior. You have a sixth-year senior in G and Gala. The idea on Floyd Badunga is he's going to have a big enough season that he's going to be able to go pro after the season too. So now you're looking at the 2026 roster, and who knows, maybe a guy like Cole Rosario, if he breaks out and becomes a starter, does he become a one and done possibly for Kansas? But you look to the 2026 to 2027 roster for KU, and you start to get to okay, who's going to be the guy? Jamari McDowell can be back, and Corbin Allen can be back that year and stuff, and it's okay, but those are more, program type guys. Okay, Paul Mbia could be back and whatever, but you get to a point where it's okay, maybe Cole Rosario is a sophomore or something. Maybe it's Elmarco Jackson as a fourth year junior at that point in time, but it's who is the go-to option for next year's team when you look at it on paper? And the answer is you don't have to know right now, because most of these rosters are going to be constructed via the transfer portal and via high school recruiting, which is just kind of getting rolling out for when these players are committing. But it's really nice that if you land this kid, you'll be able to feel like you have the answer to who is the guy on this team, who is the alpha guard on this team. And you feel like Taylen Kinney can come in and be another one of those stud freshman point guards that Bill Self has had. Just somebody else that you feel like would give you more coverage too, depending on what Elmarko Jackson's going to look like this year. Because I've kind of said, I think the idea here would be, can Elmarko give you enough this year? Whether he plays 20, 25 minutes per game, can Elmarko Jackson give you enough this year that you at least see flashes to where you go into the following season going, yeah, I'm ready for Elmarko to play 32 minutes per game and he's going to be a stud. And if that doesn't happen, it gives you coverage. If not, if it does happen, then you feel even better, because then you're like, oh, I think Elmarko is going to be a stud and we got the number one point guard in the class. And then you're going to feel really good about your 1-2 punch at the guard position. But it gives you another like, that's the thing. As much as I think Elmarko is going to show those flashes, and I do think Elmarko is going to take that jump, and then we are going to be saying, hey, I think Elmarko is going to be a really good player in 26, 27. There's not an obvious answer on the roster right now. Again, you have the transfer portal and high school recruiting, so plenty to be had of who is going to be the bucket getters on the 2026 to 2027 roster. And Kinney is definitely a guard that can get his and be a bucket getter. And that would be so important for KU. It also would get the, class of 2026 rolling for KU, a class that seems to have very promising potential at this point for Kansas, based on the fact of like who they're having visits from, who they're talking to, who they're offering, the hire of Tony Bland in the offseason. Seems like this has the potential to be a very good class. This would get it rolling and start that momentum. The other thing is there a chance if KU lands him, is that indicative that Bill Self will be back for another year? As much as we heard that the health stuff isn't going to impact him, I don't know. As a family, do you have those conversations that this could be your last year or not? And I don't know that that's my expectation at this point in time based on how Bill Self has responded to it, but is this just further proof? Because if you're Bill Self and you're not going to be here the following year, why even bother going through, all these recruiting visits with some of these guys? I know you want to leave the program in good standing, but theoretically, if he commits to you and then you retire, is he going to stay committed or is he going to go somewhere else? And I don't know. I guess if you have an internal hire, if it were Jock Vaughn at that point, then maybe you're setting him up for success. But point being, I don't know, maybe that's a better indication that Bill Self will be back for another year if you do land him. Now, if he doesn't, KU is still going to have a lot of available targets in the class. This is still early on. They're still going to have guys that they seem to be at least in striking distance with. It also means just different ways of, because I'd imagine to get Taylen Kinney probably takes a good amount of, I say NIL, but really rev share money to be able to bring him on. It just means moving and maneuvering money in different ways. But, make no mistake. I don't want to make it like, oh, if they don't land him, they'll be fine. They still have the money in other ways. Like, yes, they will be fine. It's Kansas. Kansas will recover well. They'll find another good prospect. But will they find the number one point guard in the country? No. So it's like one of those things where it's like, if he doesn't pick KU, it's not the end of the world. Time will go on. KU will find other good players. But it would still be a missed opportunity, because the other good player you might get might be a good player. Taylen Kinney could come in and be a great player. Wouldn't you rather have the great player? And Taylen Kinney has the opportunity to do that and be a really, really talented player. And if you're losing to, we get caught up in all these things about, okay, well, what about the defense? And what about the 3-point shooting? And, I do it too, obviously, right? But sometimes at the end of the day, the easiest way to do this thing, and I get it, there are other things that go into it too, but do you have dudes? Do you have enough talent? And sometimes that's, I certainly, again, will get ingrained in, oh, they don't have enough spacing or they don't. But at the end of the day, too, the team the last couple of years didn't really have enough NBA talent on the roster. And that's what Kinney keeps going, right? You feel like Darren Peterson and Flory are both going to be NBA players on this year's team. Who are going to be the NBA players on next year's team, right? Is Flory going to be back? Is he not? That'll be kind of part of that. Is Elmarko Jackson going to eventually be an NBA player? Is Cole Rosario, will he be on the team? Is Samis Calderon? Right? Guys like that. With Taylen Kinney, you feel like that would be the case. Get the talented guys and let Bill Self figure it out from there. All right, so if KU does land Kinney, would this officially establish a pipeline with OT? We'll get to that next. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Jayhawks, Trey Lathan delivered in a big way. He obviously had the big interception. It was his first interception of the year. It was against his former team. He also had a sack. He had the handful of tackles. And it just seems like Trey Lathan has been that steady week-to-week performer for KU so far. And just like Trey Lathan delivered and has been delivering for the Jayhawks, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce coffee cup, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. I just love how portable they are. Easy to throw in a backpack or a purse. Easy to throw in your pockets. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. And again, I don't think you're realizing, like, the portability of it is so nice. If you're up early in the morning, maybe you're like, oh, okay, I got invited to go to the movies with my friends, but it's like late at night and I'm like an early bed goer. You could probably sneak that thing into the movies. I know you're not supposed to sneak things in the movies. Wink, wink, right? Easy, because nobody's going to see it. Small enough in your pocket. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com, or you can go to Amazon today. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Again, Taylen Kinney commits this weekend. If he does pick KU, we'll have another bonus episode for that. If not, then on to the next one, I guess. So if KU does land Kinney, is OTE officially a pipeline for KU? These are all the players that Kansas has landed from Overtime Elite. That's what OTE stands for. It's basically it's like a professional prep league, so to speak, where basically like kids can go from being, okay, instead of playing senior year of high school varsity basketball, I can go play against other future pros and high-level prospects and get recruited and get paid in some of these instances to do this sort of thing. So Bryson Tiller was at OTE. Cole Rosario was at OTE. Samis Calderon was at OTE. So Kansas has 3 players on their roster, basically a quarter of their roster coming from OTE. I guess a little less than that. But especially, too, if you look at, like, guys that I don't know, it seems like Cole Rosario, Samis Calderon, and Bryson Tiller are all players with bright futures at the very least for KU too. And now, if you landed Kinney, you would be adding to that. And first of all, like, is this a good place you want a pipeline for? It's interesting because typically you think of pipelines as, a state. Like, this is where you're breading your butter in recruiting, and this is like a place that you consistently own and are finding really good recruits and are consistently bringing kids out of it. And like, it's almost fostering itself where like a younger player sees that kid go to your school and have success and it makes them want to go there. Right. You don't think of it in this instance as like a place where people come from around the country where it's not just, but like that almost makes it better. That almost makes it better that it's not just like a region, that it's I don't know, basketball league. Because you're basically getting a centralized basketball league where you would have a pipeline, but it's some of the best players from across the country. And so you're basically already, by being in OTE, not all of the best, some of the best prospects are still going to play high school. Some of the best prospects are going to go play prep school somewhere. But some of the best prospects, as we've seen, again, those are all got like Cole Rosario, top 50 recruit, basically. Bryson Tiller, like top 40 recruit in the country. And you look at Samis Calderon, like, 4-star recruit. You're talking about guys who are highly recruited players. And so you're filtering them down into this one league. And if you can have a pipeline there, probably makes it a lot easier from a standpoint of recruiting. And yes, again, like Darren Peterson wasn't playing for OTE. So like, you're not every good player goes to OTE, but if you're bringing on a bunch of good players from OTE, you're going to end up with pretty talented rosters year over year. Second off, I'd kind of be interested to know, is there like just a great relationship there between Bill Self or maybe Curtis Townsend or whoever on the KU staff and some people at OTE? Or is this just kind of, coincidence that a lot of these players have happened to go to KU? Like, how is that exactly working? And third, like, is it helpful for KU on the money side of recruiting now to continuously go back to one well? I can't get my head out of that as well. Especially, again, you go back here and say that you have a lot of talent that's coming into this area where, you can make multiple offers. It's not like, hey, you go recruit a high school, maybe you're only offering one kid in the whole district or something, for instance, or in the whole state sometimes. At OTE, you might be offering 3 or 4 kids, and maybe that makes it easier from scouting. I think it might make it easier from a money side, right? You think about in recruiting nowadays where money is so important in all this, and whether it's rev share, whether it's NIL, envision this, like, it's a more uniform way of a bidding process, I think. Like, I think sometimes agents can try to bid schools almost against themselves and to get their player the most money possible. If you're working out of the same league every time, I don't know how the agency process works. Is it always the same agent? I don't know, probably not. But if it's always the same league, you probably have a more uniform price. It's like, imagine if you went to the farmer's market to pick up something, but then you also went to Dillon's, and then you went to Hy-Vee, and then you went to Sprouts, and you went to all these different grocery stores. You might get different prices on the same items. Some items might be cheaper at one place. Other items might be cheaper at another place. And that makes it kind of, sometimes, and even that's not a perfect simile or analogy because of the fact that, like, grocery stores do have more set prices. But you get them saying that it can be a bit more complicated versus if you're at the same store every time, the prices, what you're getting into. And even if it's, even if it ends up being a little pricier, if you know what you're getting into, you can budget for it a little bit better. And I wonder if that's a good thing for KU too. But would certainly be a good place to have a pipeline. And if they land Kinney, I would come away with it, maybe they already have it by having those 3 players, but I would certainly think, because then you're adding another year of players coming in from OTE as well. All right, that'll do it for this bonus episode of Locked on Jayhawks. Again, we'll be back on Sunday if Kinney picks KU. We also have a episode coming later this weekend to recap whatever happens in the KU Cincinnati game. And don't forget to check out all our KU Cincinnati preview right here with Locked on Jayhawks. See you next time.